In all of biology, there's this one process that's kind of like the ultimate relay race. It's a race against time where the baton of life itself gets passed from one generation to the very next. So, what are we talking about today? Well, we're diving into the incredible story of reproduction. And it all starts with this one huge question. I mean, think about it. Every single living thing, from a tiny microbe to the biggest whale, has an expiration date. And yet, life itself just keeps going. So, how is that possible? How has this massive, tangled web of life managed to hang on for billions of years without just fizzling out?
Well, the answer to that pretty deep question really boils down to a single, powerful biological drive. It's a process so absolutely essential that without it, any species would be gone in a single generation. And that process, of course, is reproduction.
To put it as simply as possible, reproduction is just how life makes more life. That's it. It's the fundamental mechanism for creating new organisms, the offspring, from their parents. It's really the cornerstone of all existence. So let's start there, with what you could call life's greatest challenge. Every organism has to face this fundamental limit, mortality. But biology came up with a pretty genius solution to this universal problem, a way for life to outlast any one individual. But how exactly does life pull this off? Well, turns out there isn't just one way to do it. Over billions of years, evolution has come up with two main strategies, two totally different paths for creating the next generation. At the most basic level, the difference is just simple math. You have asexual reproduction, which only needs one parent, and then you have sexual reproduction, which, as you probably know, usually involves two. And that one little difference, it has massive, massive consequences for everything. So let's take a look at that first path, which we can call the strategy of sameness. This approach is pretty straightforward. It's all about a single parent making perfect duplicates of itself. The best way to think about asexual reproduction is like a biological photocopier. It's incredibly fast and super efficient, mainly because you don't have to waste time or energy finding a mate. A single parent can just churn out offspring that are, for all practical purposes, exact genetic copies. And the scientific term for these identical copies is probably one you've heard before, a clone. Because there's no mixing of genes from two different parents, the offspring are basically indistinguishable from the parent, both in how they look and in their DNA. And you see this strategy all over the place, especially in the plant world. A perfect example is something called vegetative propagation. I mean, if you've ever left a potato in the pantry for too long and seen it start to sprout those little eyes, you've actually seen this in action. Each one of those buds can grow into a whole new potato plant, a perfect clone of the original. And here's another really cool one, the bryophyllum plant. Its nickname is Mother of Thousands, and for good reason. It literally grows these tiny, fully formed little plants right on the edges of its leaves. Eventually, they just fall off, land in the soil, and boom, a new independent plant. It's like a little self-replication factory. So this method seems pretty great, right? It's fast, it's simple, and you're passing on a genetic blueprint that you already know works. It sounds like a perfect system. But this brings up a really important evolutionary question. Is an exact copy always the best way to go, or is there maybe an advantage to creating something brand new? And that question leads us right to our second path. Instead of sameness, this is the strategy of variation. This whole method is about mixing things up and creating something totally unique every single time. Yeah, unlike just hitting copy, sexual reproduction is a much more complex, multi-stage process. First, you have the creation of special reproductive cells called gametes. Then, those gametes have to fuse together in a process we call fertilization. And finally, that new cell develops into an embryo. It's a way slower, way more complicated process. Looking at this table really lays out the trade-offs, doesn't it? On one side, you have asexual reproduction. One parent, no gametes, identical kids, and it's fast and simple. On the other side, you've got sexual reproduction. Two parents, fusion of gametes, unique kids, and it's slow and complex. So this creates a huge puzzle. Why would so many organisms bother with the slower, more difficult path? The answer to that puzzle lies in one enormous evolutionary advantage. It turns out that even with all the extra costs and effort, sexual reproduction offers this incredibly powerful reward, one that is absolutely crucial for surviving in the long run. And that reward, the absolute game changer, is genetic variation. This is the whole point.
By combining DNA from two different parents, sexual reproduction is constantly shuffling the genetic deck, creating brand new combinations in every single offspring.
And it's this variation that gives organisms the ability to adapt to a changing world. I mean, think about it. A population of clones is really vulnerable. If a new disease comes along that can kill the parent, well, it can kill all the identical offspring too. But a diverse, varied population, it has a much better shot.
It's like a genetic lottery. Some of the offspring might just happen to have a new trait that lets them survive a drought or resist a new parasite. This variation is the raw material that natural selection works with. It's the engine that drives evolution itself, giving a species the flexibility it needs to survive over millions of years. So we end up back here. The strategy of sameness, of making copies, works great if your world never changes. But we live on a planet that is always changing. And in that kind of world, the strategy of variation is the ultimate insurance policy. It seems that in the great relay race of life, being unique isn't just a fun little quirk, it's everything.